We are here at Waterstone's Chiswick for the book festival, and we are going to speak to the local authors about their books, and very excited about it. How did you find the time to actually write a novel?
Sometimes I wake up early, sometimes I just take a notebook to the lunchroom or a coffee shop at the weekend. The inspiration, I guess, was when I was working as a nurse, as a student nurse, I noticed how sometimes health personnel didn't really believe there was a person there. They saw a patient, and I noticed how some nurses would use a special voice for the patients, would use certain words that were almost like NHS words. And sometimes if the patient couldn't speak, which is what the character in my book is like this, they would talk over the person, not really take them seriously. My character doesn't really have a choice. She's quiet because she can only say one word, she can only say yes. And I think that encourages other people to speak.
Would you say that bullying is a very big social issue nowadays for many, many people?
Yes, I certainly would, and I think today people are more worried because we're living in a rather violent society, and that is what concerns parents in particular. I set up Act Against Bullying in 2000, so I've seen the change in social behaviour, which has been quite significant. I talk a lot about tribal bullying. It's something that people experience whether they're at work or in the school playground, or in this case, this is an activist who's created a bit of a problem for himself, and people just sort of send him to Coventry and he disappears, and that's where the story begins. In actual fact, I have a connection with this story because in 2015 I stood for Parliament, and a young supporter actually took his life because of bullying. I knew him, he campaigned for me, and as you said, having run an anti-bullying charity for nearly 20 years, the outcome was just a bit too close to home, and it drove me to write this story, which closely tracks the realities of political life today.
What can we do to help stop bullying?
Flag it up when we see it and do our best to be icons of kindness, I guess.
Is there anything or anyone that inspired you in writing?
Probably my love of Chiswick. I've worked there on and off for many, many years. I've recently retired and wanted to give something back. Chiswick House is a lovely history. The people that work there they've got hearts of gold. So the story I wrote was a children's fantasy. I just plucked stories from the park, from the house, the history, wove them together. I'm just hoping kids can enjoy it. I want to spread a little bit of happiness in the world with this first book, which I believe is just good fun for 9 to 11-year-olds.
Could you tell me what the book is about?
It's about the First World War. It's about what happened in Chiswick, first of all. But the main part of the book is a compilation of letters, about getting on for 300 of them, from soldiers, sailors, and some women, and various people who wrote home. I was on a local history course in Cambridge, and I showed them to someone there, and he said, "You've got a book there." This was about a year ago. So I came home and put it all together and made it into a book.
Well, reading between the lines is really a culmination of my entire career, and although I wrote the book in about 3 or 4 months, it did actually take me 30 years to start writing it, so not too fast. It's really just a family-friendly, interactive book for everyone to work out what the personality behind the handwriting, whether it's their own or other people's, means.
So what can we actually learn from the handwriting about a person?
We can learn so much. We can learn how they interact with other people, their social skills, whether they're honest or not, whether they are extrovert, whether they're introvert, what their talents are, whether they're creative or whether they're more logical, what their perfect career is, and who their perfect partner is. Compatibility is a big part.
That's great. So how can the graphology be used in business, for example?
Well, in business, I've been using it for quite a long time to help with recruitment. So with companies, particularly large banks and financial institutions, they might get a short list together of possible candidates, and I will look at the handwriting and I will tell them exactly what each person is like, reading between the lines, and I'll be able to tell more than just in an interview or psychometric testing. And I'm also going to be looking at the people that they're going to be working with to see whether they're compatible.
What did you most enjoy about writing the book?
I loved the whole writing process, and then I read it to my class that I teach at work, and they loved it.
So what sort of advice do the children give you when you read the books to them?
They'd say if they didn't understand a word, or if I'd repeated a phrase, or they told me parts that they liked and parts that they found a bit boring.
So what adventures did Oscar get up to?
Well, initially he gets lost on a ferry, and then he goes on to meet different characters who try to help him. And he's sort of desperately wanting to go home for a lot of it, and then eventually he meets a lady cat at the end, and they sail off into the sunset together and are going to have lots of adventures.
Do the ripples represent something, or do they have any meaning?
They do have a meaning. So when a person is diagnosed with something as serious as HIV and AIDS or any other life-changing diagnosis, it's not only the person who receives that diagnosis that is impacted by that, but the people that surround them as well. So in my book you'll hear not only my story, but the same story from the point of view of the people that were around me at the time. My partner, friends, family, colleagues, medical staff. The ripples extend far and wide.
Is there any message you would give to the people who find themselves in a life-changing situation like you?
There's always hope. There's always a light. The most important thing is to reach out to people. Don't isolate yourself, because as you heard me say earlier, it is loneliness that kills most people. The mental impact of receiving a diagnosis like this cannot be underestimated. Reach out, talk to people. I should not be here. Somebody somewhere has made a huge mistake. You see, 12 years ago, I was told I had 2 weeks to live. Life is not about being afraid of the storm. It's about learning how to dance in the rain.
We had an amazing evening here at Chiswick Waterstones, and if there are any books that you are interested in from the local authors, they can be purchased here.